What is up, you guys? Welcome to the collective. My name is Furman, and in this video we are going to be talking about quite possibly my favorite console ever created. Now, am I exaggerating? Maybe a little bit. But before we get started on talking about this beautiful piece of tech, don't forget to like this video, share this video, and subscribe to my channel for more awesome content just like this. Alright guys, let's get into it. Alright guys, so this video is basically dedicated to people that are like enthusiasts, like people that really love playing their favorite retro games, but in the best possible way. This thing is called the Analogue Pocket, and as you guys can see, I have been obsessed with it. Like, I've been posting shorts like crazy about it because it's just so much fun. And this thing is such a cool little device. It does so many things right that it makes up for its shortcomings, which it does have. You know, it's not a perfect item, but it does so much right that, you know, we kind of just don't really care about that so much. And also, a lot of its issues are kind of upgradable too, so they could just release a software update and fix a lot of the issues. Now let me get started with the negative parts of these things. Obviously, the first one is going to be shipping and handling and payment, basically. That's going to be the worst part when it comes to this thing, because of just how they have it set up right now. It kind of sucks. When they first announced this thing in 2019, the people that pre-ordered it then didn't get theirs until 2020-ish, like fall season 2020-ish, so Q4. And then when I had a chance to buy mine, I bought mine in 2021, December 2021, and I didn't receive it until November of 2022. So like basically a year. I had to wait a whole year to get this thing, but it was definitely worth it. Definitely worth the wait. Yeah, so that totally sucks. And on top of that, this item costs $220, and that doesn't include the shipping, which is going to be around $60, I believe. I'm not quite sure why it's so much for shipping, but as soon as it came here, I got it and it was awesome. Oh, and then another thing too, as far as shipping goes, my box was like absolutely mashed. Like, it was completely destroyed, and somehow this was still alive in it. So that's something to think about, you know. Potentially you could have a damaged product. I haven't seen online anybody receive theirs in such a bad way or in such bad condition, so maybe mine's was the one box that was in the very corner that got destroyed by a forklift. So unfortunate, happened to me, but nothing's wrong with this, so I'm alright with it. And as far as pricing goes, because of the fact that you're paying almost $300, honestly, and I know this sounds pretty crazy, but it's probably gonna be easier to just get one off a scalper on eBay. Yes, I know, as crazy as that sounds, it is actually a thing. So it might actually be easier to just get one, because they're charging $300 to $350 on eBay right now for one of these. And that's essentially what you'll end up paying. The only difference is you won't have to wait, because those scalpers already have theirs. So in this instance, they'll just ship it out to you when you pay for it. So you'll get it in a couple weeks. Whereas now, if you were to go on the website, they're just kind of giving you a ballpark. So not really sure when you'd actually be able to get it. It just says Q1 2023, I believe. And so that's the next 4 months essentially. So that totally sucks, but definitely worth the wait. Now, one of my most favorite things about the Analogue Pocket is literally the screen. I mean, check that thing out. That is an insanely gorgeous screen. Not just because of the fact that it's a 1440p screen, which is pretty much overkill for Game Boy games. I mean, it really is. But because of how bright it gets and the density of pixels, it just makes games, especially Game Boy and Game Boy Color games, just look absolutely phenomenal. And honestly, it's just well designed. There are some issues with the design as far as I'm concerned. These are it right here, the buttons. The clicks, I don't know, it feels almost like they're just broken. Like, it just doesn't, it's not a very good click. It's not a satisfying click like, you know, Game Boy Advance or Game Boy Advance SP. They just feel mushy and like very inconsistent. So as far as the design, that sucks. And the sharp edges do kind of dig into your hand when you're playing it, so that can be pretty uncomfortable, which sucks. But you know, those are just things that I'm pretty much just nitpicking about because they don't necessarily bother me. Like I've played it, you know, I've done long playthroughs where I sat down and played it for a couple hours and no issues there. But yeah, as far as that goes, the design, you know, it does more right than it does wrong. So I'm willing to forgive it because of that. I'm definitely a big fan of its simplistic nature. You know, I would have liked some, you know, letters or something on the buttons, or, you know, arrows on the D-pad, but you know, it's not that big of a deal. It's a really good job that they did on it. Now, part two of the things that I love about this thing is honestly the fact that you can literally do this. You can put games into it. So it's not just basically an emulation machine. It does do that, and it does it very well, but you can play physical games on it. And this for me is a really, really big deal because of the fact that, you know, I like to collect video games. I have a lot of games that I've wanted to play, and, you know, just having something that is, you know, the form factor of a Game Boy, but just a lot better, like just a million times better looking, it's just really cool to be able to do. And yeah, you might say, hey, you know, you have a CRT TV and you have a GameCube, so technically you could just pop them into your Game Boy Advance player or whatever and just play them on there. Yes, and I do that sometimes, but it's just nice to be able to put this, you know, just plug in a game, sit on my bed, or, you know, use the bathroom, whatever you gotta do, and literally just play this thing on there. So it's portable, and it's just a really, really cool way to play this thing. Yeah, so the fact that you're able to do that is really cool, and what makes matters even better is the fact that you have a little port right here that basically lets you put an SD card, and you can download games, and you can basically play games on this thing. And you're not just limited to playing Game Boy, Game Boy Color, Game Boy Advance, Game Gear, all those things. You can also play Super Nintendo, a lot of those older consoles that aren't crazy overpowered. You can pretty much play those on there, which is like insane. And they look really good and they run really good. And it's because of this little thing here. I don't know if you guys can see that, but it says FPGA. Now, I don't 100% know what this means because I'm not super technically savvy when it comes to that kind of stuff. But basically, what it does is that it pretty much runs your game the best way possible. Like as close to the initial console that it was on. That's how good it plays it. Wow! And that's not just for these guys too. That is literally also for the emulation side of things. So not only do you have the best way to play hard games, like, you know, physical copies, but you have literally one of the best emulation systems, and it just runs and it just works. It just does its thing. I will say the menus and the systems and all that have issues. They are not perfect in any way, shape, or form. And for this instance, you know, I'm a Mac user, so I have a MacBook Pro. That's what I edit these videos on. And when I set when I set all of that stuff up, it was simple. It wasn't super complicated, but for some reason it duplicated a lot of the files that I have on here. So there's some files on here that have like a little dash on it. You're not supposed to press those. You're supposed to press the ones that don't have it, and those are the actual ROMs that play on it. So that's apparently an issue that's exclusive to Mac users. So you guys might not have that issue, which is awesome. There's a workaround, but I haven't found it yet, or I haven't been able to figure it out and do it right. So that's more of an issue on me, but I digress. So yeah, I've actually gotten a chance to show this to a lot of my friends, and a lot of their reactions are like, wow, this is such a cool thing. It's not necessarily something that they would buy because they're not how I am, which is, you know, I want to play things as original as possible, as close to the original thing as possible. But when they look at it, they're just insanely impressed by like the design and all of that stuff. And that's a lot of stuff that you don't necessarily see all the time when it comes to a lot of these, you know, smaller companies that are making retro handhelds and stuff like that. Analogue has been known for having some of the best emulation systems like out there. So the fact that they put out a console and it does as good as it does is a really good bonus. So you're not just getting something from a company that just kind of put something out there. Oh, we're just from China and we just put something out there, we're just trying to make money, or it's not like a soldier console or anything like that. This is something where they have a track record, and you know, for the last 10 years I believe they've been putting out really good products. So you have that backing. I will say this though, one of my worries is what would happen if this were to break. And honestly, I don't know. And that kind of worries me. Like, there's not really anyone that's doing any replacements online or, you know, fixing issues like that. So I wonder what would happen. You know, like that's something that you have to worry about, you know, and that's a lot of money to spend on something that you're kind of iffy on. So that's also something you have to take into consideration. But honestly, I mean, this thing has been working and I haven't had any issues for the last few months. And honestly, I haven't seen any complaints online or on YouTube. So for the most part, I think it's a pretty solid product and it's not something that you have to worry about. Now, I did mention that you guys can play Game Boy, Game Boy Advance, Game Boy Color games on this thing. But really the best games to play on it are Game Boy and Game Boy Color games because of the aspect ratio. And you know what, that's one of the things that excites me the most about this thing here, is the fact that it's been sold out, it's been like selling like crazy, people have been absolutely loving it. So this is telling the company that there's money to be made on this thing. So the next thing that I'd like to see them do is maybe do a Game Boy Advance version of this, or a Game Boy Advance SP version of this thing. Because when you play Game Boy Advance games on here, you do get the black bars on the bottom and the top, so that sucks as far as like the aspect ratio not being quite right. And you know, most people won't care about this. This isn't even a big issue, but for me, you know, it is a big issue because like the game is kind of hindered. It doesn't look as good as it possibly could because of that being the whole looking widescreen issue. So honestly, I'd love for them to put out a new console, something that, you know, resembles a Game Boy Advance. I'm more of a Game Boy Advance SP fan, so I'd like to see the clamshell design return.
Get some help.
But yeah, I'd love to see them do something like that in the future. I think that would be really amazing. So all in all, as far as this console goes, I mean, I could not recommend it higher for you guys. I could not do...
You stupid!
To say you need this is an understatement, essentially, because of how cool this thing is. I mean, it's just one of the best ways to play your old games, or to, you know, download a few ones that you've never played before. All of that stuff is really simple to do, and there's a bunch of YouTube videos that show you how to set that stuff up. So it's really... you got nothing to lose, honestly. Alright guys, thank you so much for watching. Thank you for listening to me rant about this awesome Analogue Pocket. And as always guys, don't forget to like this video, share this video, and subscribe to my channel for more awesome content just like this. Alright guys, we will see you guys on the next video. Peace.